Welcome to my shortwave radio channel as we continue examining radios of the past, and of course we'll go to the present. I came across and own and still have a Kenwood R-5000 receiver. Now this was my dream receiver back in the day. It was something that I was constantly going downtown to a place that was called Radio Lorenz. And there I would go buy a lot of books. There were on a shelves with tons of radio books. So it would be my place to go. I'd go and check out the new books that were coming out, and things like the confidential frequency list. I remember buying my first first utility book from there also a long time ago. I would pick up a copy of Monitoring Times and Popular Communications. And of course, in one of the displays, there was this beautiful Kenwood R-5000 that they were selling. And I would go and look at it, and he often would have it actually plugged in, and he had kind of an antenna that we could tune around with it a little bit. And so I thought, this is the dream radio that maybe someday I'll be able to purchase. I'll have the money. Back then it was about with the filters, because you needed to buy a extra filter for AM, because the one that came with it wasn't good. Was coming up to something like $1,400, $1,500, and so it kept being a dream for like maybe 1988, 89. And then in 1990, I got a call from my brother that knew about this radio that I loved. And he was looking through the classified ads in the newspaper. And someone not very far from where I live was selling it for $900. So my brother said, "You want to go and see it?" I said, "Yeah, okay. Let's go and take a look." So we arrived there. Obviously, the radio was pretty much unused. The guy, I think, told me he turned it on maybe twice and never used it again. So it was, in effect, brand new, and it was very clean. And he showed me the receipt. It was still on warranty. It was only 6 months before that he purchased it from Radio Lorenz. And so I tuned around with it to see if it was working well and everything. And finally, I kind of bluffed a little bit. I had 900, but I told him, I got only 800. Would you accept 800? And he says, "Yeah, okay, no problem." So I got it for 800. And came back home with my dream receiver, which I was just amazed. And that weekend, I had an uncle, which was a TV, radio, VCR repair guy, and he came over for a Saturday night supper. And I remember he looked at it, and I said, "Yeah, you gotta open it and see where I need to install the new filter." And he said, "Well, put the radio on the table. I'm gonna help you out." So I put the radio on the table. We opened it. He looked inside and he said, "Look, it goes here." And he unscrewed the one that was there, put the new filter on, and I had the new filter installed, thanks to my uncle, and it was pretty cool. So this has been my main radio that followed me from 1990 to about 2008. So about 18 years. It started having the dots problem. So this is one of the common issues of this radio, the dots and the display, which is simply that the phase lock loop, the PLL circuit in the radio, loses its lock. And the reason it does that is because there's a kind of it's kind of a wax that they put on the circuit board to kind of protect it. And it, with the humidity in the air over the years, it actually degrades and become kind of acidic, and it actually attacks the circuit board and the parts. So at first I let it, turn it on and leave it on for forever, because if I didn't shut it down, it didn't have any problems. But one day we had a power outage, and it was somewhere in 2008-9, a little later, maybe 2010. And what happened is when the power outage happened, when the radio came back on a few hours later, it never came back and got out of the dots issue. It was there forever now. So I was thinking, do I get it fixed? What do I do from now on? And I was wondering, what's next? So I went through a few repair guys around here that existed back then. No one wanted to touch this radio. No one. They would just see the radio and say, no, I'm not going to play with that. So I ended up thinking about, okay, maybe something new. And I was eyeing the ICOM ICR 8500 back then. SDRs were not really much of a thing. And we were still pretty much in the standard, analog PLL radios. So looking on the web, I saw that at Radio World in Toronto, it was on sale. They had like $300 off the ICOM. And I thought, well, maybe that's the time to get one. And so I purchased the ICOM ICR 8500. I knew that the shortwave was not as good as the Kenwood, because I had read enough documentation over it, but it was still one of the good radios out there. And what was appealing to me is the fact that for the first time I had an high-end radio that also had VHF, UHF capability up to 2 gigahertz. And that was a big thing for me, especially the fact that I could use single sideband on the VHF, UHF range and so on. It opened up a new world, like, for example, listening to amateur radio satellites. So this radio kept going for 18 years. In the 90s, it was my bedside radio, and I remember listening to Radio Nationale Tchadienne on 4904.5 kilohertz before going to bed at night. And I DX'd so much and so many stations with this. Probably the bulk of all my QSL cards come from the era of my Kenwood R-5000, where I continued writing to stations and DXing the world, hearing stuff that I never heard before, because this radio was vastly superior to my DX302. And so still going on today. Still have it here, and pretty cool radio. I always thought it was one of the coolest looking radios that existed. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us thumbs up. Thank you for watching.